The NYPD is facing a major hiring crisis. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch announced new policies to expand recruitment and strengthen training for future cadets.
The commissioner is also calling for a quality of life division aimed in part at tracking complaints of everyday New Yorkers. Uh-oh, she's come to the right place. With us right now, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. Nice to have you back on Good Day.
Always nice to be with you.
Should we be giving you our personal complaints as well?
I mean, you can. Everyone else does, so why not?
All right, let's start with broken windows, because we did have broken windows in New York City, and we saw a reduction in crime. And then under another mayor, not going to say his name, de Blasio, but anyway, he got rid of all that stuff. And then we saw crime start to creep up. What are you seeing?
So we're starting a quality of life division at the NYPD to really attack the sense of chaos and disorder in certain neighborhoods. So things like abandoned vehicles or out of control e-scooters or motorbikes, unruly vending, the type of thing that people call 311 to complain about. And we need to make sure that the police are as responsive to those types of quality of life issues as they are to 911 calls about crime complaints.
So is this kind of like a preventative crime strategy?
You know, when you go after underlying quality of life issues, it's really to make people feel safe in their communities. No one wants to walk out of their home or their apartment and see a homeless encampment. And so the police have to be responsive to those types of issues to raise the quality of life in New York City.
Why haven't they been? Because I'm getting some comments on X this morning saying, has the police commissioner seen on social media people fare jumping, for example, and police officers standing right nearby, and it doesn't seem like they go after every single one of them?
So the idea not to go after low-level crimes came in the past from a few different sources. First and foremost, some of our prosecutors' offices don't prosecute them. So what's the point of the police, they think, making an arrest if they're going to make the arrest and then that arrest is just going to be thrown out by a prosecutor's office? And so we are putting real pressure on our prosecutorial partners to take looks at any blanket policy that encourage recidivism in New York City.
How do you balance some of the criticisms of a policy like broken windows when it comes to oversimplification of crimes and not looking at socioeconomic concerns and poverty among those things as a reason for it?
So I want to be very clear. Our quality of life approach is not going to be a dragnet. Our officers will have full discretion. They could advise people to change their behavior, they can issue a summons, they can make an arrest. But this is, we will give our officers a huge amount of discretion to handle situations as they find appropriate.
I wanted to talk about that recidivism issue that you brought up, because it's not something that is necessarily new to the NYPD. Your predecessors have spoken about this before, and it always seems like it comes up in Albany around the time of the budget, and then it's talked about, but it doesn't actually change anything. I mean, how do you get through on a message like that?
So I want to be very clear with your viewers, as I've been up in Albany 2 weeks ago when I was there. In New York City, we do not have a surging crime problem, but we have a wild, raging, surging recidivism problem. If you look at the number of people who are arrested 3 times or more in the same year for the same crime, you compare that to 2018, we're up 150+% in many major crime categories. And something's got to give. The good news, I think, is that when I went up to Albany, I sensed that the message had broken through up there with state lawmakers, that we need meaningful, substantive changes to these laws that make or render the criminal justice system a revolving door.
Is that what creates some of these like pockets of crime where you have the same people kind of doing it over and over, and it then makes the whole system looks like it's having some issues?
Absolutely. Our criminal justice system in New York City, largely because of certain New York state laws, is a revolving door where there are no consequences, not just for crime, but violent crime and repeated violent crime. It is out of all control, and something has to give. And for the first time, I believe that that message has made it up the New York State Thruway and into the halls of our state capitol.
I hope you're right about Albany, because someone in Albany, Hasty, who's a big power broker, Okay, he had a shooting outside of his office, and at one point, and I'm not sure he has, to this day, cooperated with the investigation.
So I had a very direct and clear meeting with him and his colleagues up in Albany, and what I can say is I was incredibly clear-eyed and clear about the type of problem that we have and how profound it is.
Can we talk about recruitment?
Sure.
It seems like you're changing some of the standards on recruitment. Why?
Because we're in a hiring crisis at the NYPD. We don't have enough people these days who want to sign up and take the most noble job anyone could take, which is becoming a police officer in New York City. And a lot of it has to do with the anti-police movement and the defund the police movement and the vile rhetoric that has been hurled at our cops over the past several years. The pendulum has just swung too far against the police in New York City, and in particular at the NYPD, and it's time to swing it back. So given that we don't have enough candidates to fill all of the spots we want to fill and hire all the cops we want to hire, we had to look at our standards. And so we've lowered the number of college credits required to become a cop from 60 down to 24. At the same time, we've increased the number of college credits that they will earn, our recruits will earn, by going through the academy.
New York Post is also reporting there may be a timed run that could be associated with it. I mean, that's a big change.
It's actually not a big change. For decades, there was a timed run at the NYPD where you had to run 1.5 miles in a fairly reasonable amount of time, like 14 minutes and 20 seconds. That went away for a year or two, and now we've assessed it and made the decision to bring it back.
I'm wondering about today at Columbia University. Over the last few days, things have gotten a little crazy there. First of all, the governor has talked about getting rid of those masks in public. All of those kids have, or we think they're kids. We're not sure if they're outside agitators or not. What are you finding with your investigation?
We should get rid of the masks in public. I agree with the governor on that. As far as Barnard is concerned, we were watching what was going on there, as were a lot of other eyes in the city. We had a police presence ready to go in, but ultimately it's private property, and we cannot go in unless we are called by the school or the institution. And Barnard made the decision not to call on our services at that time. That is up to them, not up to us.
I want to go down below just for a second, if we could, talking about some of the subway crime issues. We had a stretch where there were so many high-profile incidents, a lot of it sort of connected to some of the people who were having the mental issues down there. Does the NYPD have the power to bring some of those people off of the subway platforms? Have things changed enough where you feel like you're able to get ahead of some of those issues, that preventative methods that we've talked about earlier?
Yeah, the same quality of life stuff that we just discussed we're doing, we're starting above ground, we're actually doing below ground too. We've started in a transit district in Queens and in Brooklyn, where we're going after things like smoking in transit, drinking in transit, outstretched in transit. Our transit system is not a psychiatric ward, it is not a homeless shelter, and the police are not going to walk by those conditions when they see them anymore. As part of this pilot, they're going to address them. We've seen real success on the 2 subway lines where we are doing it.
Do they have the ability to just pull them out of there and put them someplace?
Yes,
like
where if people need mental health care, we take them out and we bring them to Bellevue.
So
if they need a summons, they get a summons, and if they get arrested, they get arrested.
They're not asked if they want to go.
No, I mean, the governor and the mayor are leading changes to legislation up in Albany that would give us some more flexibility to do that. But right now, we do have certain authority to remove people from the subway.
All right, there's a lot of talk about you.
Rosanna, don't stir anything up.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
Rosanna, you know me a very long time.
I do know you.
I am a public servant, not a politician.
Okay, but, you know, there may be a call for you to jump into the mayor's race. Would you consider if there was a big recruitment behind you?
You know, my dream was to be the sanitation commissioner.
I remember when you were here.
I never even really dared dream of being police commissioner, but this is the job for me, for sure. Sorry.
Good question.
It was a good question. Okay. Well, thank you for what you're doing for our city. We appreciate that. Jessica Tisch, Police Commissioner of New York City.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. You know, she said she didn't want to be the police commissioner when she was sanitation.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry. Did she hear what I just said?
Laying the groundwork, Rosanna. She's still sitting right over there, so maybe you never know.
Just throwing it out. Anyway, thank you, Commissioner Tisch.